My overall thoughts on Matt's story was I liked it a lot. I liked his determination to like make friends and strive to like be this person that he thought like, or his parents thought that he couldn't be. I also think it's really like sweet and endearing that he found kind of like his own community, and even though he like hid himself from his community for a long time, I still think that him finding like those 8 group of people of like, I think it was like Starlink or Starlight, was like really important into like, I don't know, finding out that like he did feel love in his life, and like even with women, like he was considered a womanizer. And I really liked that. I don't know, his story was like really sweet because of those reasons. Also surprised that he kept all of like World of Warcraft and that entire like realm separate from his like personal life or like his parents. And it was just surprising that they had no clue like the magnitude of the people that he was like talking to online, as that was like his entire life. He spent like literally all of his day on that game with those people. And I don't know, I feel like if I was spending all of my time doing something like that, even as a parent, I would be intrigued as to what like Mats was doing. And so I just found it really surprising that Mats was able to like kind of surprise them at the end, especially when he did like the documentary to help with specialized equipment and like didn't tell his parents that he was doing it. It was just things like that that I thought were really like cool, that he had this own like autonomy that like I think there can be a misconception that people with like physical disabilities like have, where they can like control their own life. And so I think that was like Matt's kind of taking on control of his own life, and so I really thought that was cool. I really liked the way that the film told Matt's story. I was not expecting the World of Warcraft to be kind of replayed in like, I think it was over like the 400,000 pages of words that his group had like brought together. I really enjoyed that like you got like a lot of Matt's dialogue, and you got to like see his character like shine through this player that was like now in the World of Warcraft game. I also really liked how they brought in like people from like his group, how they brought in like his love interests and stuff like that, and got their side of the story, and like the mother and son duo, and their story of like Matt's helping them with the mom connecting to her like son who has autism, and like how Matt's like brought like together community, and like how much he like mattered to people. I really like that they like kind of focused on that, and showing that like Matt's had a huge impact on a lot of people's lives, and he was like a very important role in like this group of people who got together. And so I thought they did that really well. I also like how low-key the documentary was, especially in like the beginning where they were just showing Matt's and his growing up. I think it was like really cool to contrast that with like the bright colors of the game. I feel like it was very muted. There was no real like background music other than in the game. Like when I'm talking about his like nostalgic past or his like growing up and stuff like that, it was very focused on like Matt's inability, and then the game part of the documentary was very focused on like what Matt's did like in secret, or like what Matt's did period, like what he can do, and like his impact. As for how I think the active gaming creates community, I think the whole documentary was like a great way of showing this, especially with Matt's story obviously, but like I mentioned earlier, the story with like the mother and the son, the story with his like love interest, and the letter that he wrote to this girl's parents, basically being like, you're like being a bad parent, you're taking her away from this community. I also think that another great example was at the end, how they got together not only for Matt's funeral, but they get together yearly to like remember Matt's. I think those are all great examples of like the community that he built. And on the other side of this, on how like gaming will potentially stunt like community instead of creating it, you get this when like Matt's in the beginning of the documentary, his family was like, we were very excited to go to this concert, and it was the first time that Matt's ever decided to sit out and not do something. And I think in Matt's case it's a little different because of his disability. His gaming was more of an outlet than kind of just doing something else. It was kind of like his form of entertainment that he had complete control over, and could play this game. So like we get scenes of him early on at the beach, playing on his, I think it was like a Game Boy, or playing on some sort of game. And that was like when he was introduced to games, and his family said that they were like there's not much else he can do, so we would allow him to play on games. So in Matt's case, I think it's different, but I think video games in general, I know from personal experience with my little brother, can definitely, you know, like sometimes he won't eat dinner with us because he's playing the game, or, you know, he won't want to watch a movie with our family because he wants to play the game. And while he's getting like an online community and like hanging out with his friends, most of them like he sees at school, he's still like not getting like the family time connection. There's like a trade-off of community that you're getting when it comes to like either online or in person. I would say all of the above, depending on what game that you're playing. I think that games like Minecraft or World of Warcraft, where you're like literally, you know, role playing, or you're putting blocks down and making your own creations, can be definitely their own form of art. I think all gaming takes skill. I mean, if you've ever hopped on a game that you like didn't know how to play, obviously there's things to learn. And then I think distraction is like the biggest one. I think that people play games, I think out of pleasure, but at the same time, you know, there's other things that you could be doing, or it kind of takes you out of like the world that you're living in and transports you into like this, you know, like realm of gaming. And in Matt's case, I think it was definitely a mix of everything. I think that his skill of World of Warcraft was incredible. You know, he played for so many hours and he worked so hard, which was like the art of his character, creating, you know, that world and that community. I'm not really sure if it's a sport. I think I would have to like find a particular game to like defend that, but as of World of Warcraft and like Matt's story, I wouldn't say it was a sport, but for Matt's, I would definitely say it was a distraction from his disability, especially because he kept that hidden from, you know, his community and the group that he had created. And I think that it was a distraction from his disability. He didn't really want anyone knowing that he had a disability until the very end of his life, when he ended up, you know, opening up to one of his friends about it, when she kind of cried. But I think it's definitely a distraction and a skill and an art more than it is a sport. As for the gaming industry themselves, whether they're, you know, care about their community or if they're just focused on money, I think that most of these communities, even ones that I'm a part of, are like really big on community that as like the same that they would be on like money. I feel like most games are created by people who play them, and I think that, you know, especially games where you can like chat with other players and stuff like that, are heavily focused on community. I mean, they want to like kind of push that so that their game is getting played. I mean, I can't think of a single game now that doesn't have like a chat or doesn't have like a multiplayer mode, or, you know what I mean, like other than like single player games that are meant for like you and you only. I feel like those are closer to like monetization, but I think that any game really is focused on community. And now you have like gaming YouTubers, you have people, you know, you watch people play games, there's a whole like other world out there of people that you can even find like a community in a game that, you know, you can't play with other people. So I think that the gaming industry acknowledges community and it pushes it, but I don't know if that's their number one concern. I think that's just like, I think that's like a beautiful add-on to it, and I think that they like know that their games will bring community and they accept that and they promote that, but I don't know if that's like genuinely their number one concern. I think that, like I said earlier, with how it kind of like hinders social interaction and community like in the real world, I think that games can focus a lot on like you staying on the game, you know what I mean? And so I think that that's when it kind of separates community in the real world from you know, like community in the game. I think that they're focused more on community in the game than they are in the real world. But I don't think it's like a black and white line of, you know, whether they care about community or whether they care about just money. I think that they obviously want people to play their game so that they get money, but I also think that they acknowledge and support the fact that, you know, community is the biggest part of their games most of the time.